If you want to see tennis look like art, you study Roger Federer. He didn't just play the game, he floated above it, armed with a weaponized forehand, a surgical slice, and footwork that redefined efficiency. But how did he actually do it? In this video, we're taking apart the Swiss maestro's entire arsenal. From the mechanics of that effortless serve to the sheer genius of his return game, I'm going to explain almost every aspect of Federer's game. The catch is, I only get 1.5 minutes for each. Start the clock, and let's dive in. Now let's decode the most unreadable serve in tennis history. Roger Federer rarely served over 130 miles per hour. He didn't have the brute force of an Andy Roddick, yet he fired over 11,400 career aces and held serve a staggering 88.8% of the time. It's all about extreme mechanical efficiency. Federer's motion relies on a deep knee bend during the trophy position to store explosive energy. As he uncoils, his relaxed arm creates massive racket lag. Milliseconds before impact, his wrist undergoes rapid pronation, snapping the racket head through the ball. This allows him to transfer his full body weight seamlessly without losing his balance. But his true superpower is pure deception. For most pros, subtle shifts in their ball toss broadcast where the serve is going. Federer tosses the ball to the exact same physical window every single time. From that single release point, he can hit a flat bomb down the center, an aggressive wide slice, or a high bouncing kick serve. The returner has zero tells to read. Because his toss never changed, opponents couldn't rely on early visual cues. They were forced to guess. Combine perfect biomechanical efficiency with elite disguise, and you get the most elegant, unreadable, and devastatingly reliable equation in tennis history. While most players constantly chase the ball, Roger Federer was dancing on the court. The secret to his legendary footwork is not raw speed, but something less obvious. The statistics tell the story. During the 2019 Wimbledon tournament leading up to the final, Novak Djokovic ran an average of 13.91 meters per point, but Federer ran only 11.38 meters. By consistently covering over 2.5 meters less per point, he saves kilometers of physical output over the course of a long tournament. How does he achieve this? It begins with anticipation and the split step. Federer's split step is perfectly synchronized with his opponent's contact point. He uses the court as a springboard, landing on the balls of his feet with a wide athletic base the exact fraction of a second the ball is struck. Because he reads the ball's trajectory so early, he rarely scrambles. He utilizes energy-efficient crossover and cross-behind steps to recover quickly while keeping his center of gravity stable. When he finally arrives at the ball, his body is already in perfect posture. His footwork directly enables his elite ball striking. By replacing frantic running with calculated geometric positioning, he transfers energy seamlessly from his legs, through his hips, and directly into his racket. He doesn't run to the ball. He simply arrives exactly where the ball will be. People call Roger Federer's forehand poetry in motion. Science calls it a perfectly optimized kinetic chain. It is arguably the most biomechanically efficient weapon in tennis history. Here is exactly how it works. While most professional players use a double bend technique with a bent elbow, Federer hits with a completely straight arm at impact. In physics, this extends the radius of his swing. According to the formula for angular velocity, a longer radius at the same rotational speed produces drastically faster racket head velocity. He's essentially turning his arm into a longer, more lethal whip. The numbers are staggering. This straight arm mechanics allows him to generate an average of 2,700 revolutions per minute of topspin. That's nearly as much spin as Rafael Nadal, but Federer hits it on a flatter, more penetrating trajectory. His average rally speed sits around 76 miles per hour, but when he attacks an inside-out forehand, he flattens the racket face to clock speeds even over 100 miles per hour. But power means nothing without a stable axis. To control this violent kinetic transfer, Federer does something on the first sight meaningless, but in reality incredibly necessary. He keeps his head completely still, staring at the contact zone for around a second after the ball has left the strings. This prevents his shoulders from pulling out early, ensuring his racket meets the ball at the exact same millimeter, every single time. Forget everything you've heard about Roger Federer's backhand being effortless. It is an optical illusion. What looks like a relaxed, graceful swing to the naked eye is actually a violent, precisely calculated explosion of physics. Powering a backhand with only one arm requires extreme torque. Biomechanical analysis shows that Federer achieves a massive X-factor stretch, a shoulder rotation of greater than 22 centimeters. He turns his back entirely to the net, coiling his core and trunk muscles like a loaded spring before unleashing the kinetic chain. While a player like Rafael Nadal loops his two-hander with a staggering 1,150 revolutions per minute of topspin, Federer's topspin backhand averages a much lower 548 revolutions per minute. Why? Because Federer intentionally hits flatter and takes the ball exceptionally early. While his backhand speed averages a standard 60 miles per hour, striking the ball on the rise shrinks the court's geometry. It robs his opponent of milliseconds of reaction time. When a 100 miles per hour ball hits your racket, a single arm usually isn't strong enough to handle the shock. To fix this, Federer uses a locked lever. Right at the exact moment he hits the ball, his arm is completely straight. By locking his elbow and wrist, he stops the racket from twisting in his hand. Instead of relying on his weaker arm joints, this straight line acts like a solid wall, absorbing the heavy impact of the ball and transferring it straight into more powerful shoulder and chest muscles. In short, if you'll combine raw physics with a disguised art, you'll receive Roger Federer's backhand. It looks like silk. But underneath Roger Federer's backhand slice is a violent defensive and offensive tool. Let's start with the numbers. Rafael Nadal's legendary forehand averages around 3,200 revolutions per minute of topspin. But Federer's backhand slice routinely clocks in at a staggering 5,300 revolutions per minute of pure underspin. He is literally putting more rotational energy into a defensive slice than most players put into an offensive baseline bomb. How does he generate that force so efficiently? It starts with a strict continental grip and a high racket preparation. But watch his right arm. He locks the elbow at a 90-degree angle. Instead of pushing linearly through the ball, he executes a steep, high to low downward strike. Right at contact, the triceps fire, extending the arm while maintaining a rigid 90 to 135-degree angle between the forearm and the racket shaft. What happens next is a masterclass in kinetic friction. When a ball spinning backward at over 5,000 revolutions per minute hits the court, the massive underspin fights against the ball's forward momentum upon impact. Instead of bouncing up, the surface absorbs the kinetic energy. The ball violently skids, sliding inches off the ground and forcing the opponent to dig it out from ankle height. And if you want to use this explosive, stabilized chop for a backhand drop shot, he adds an extreme wrist flick, which allows to set a sudden trajectory for the ball, which at first seemed like just an ordinary slice, which actually never was just an ordinary shot. What makes Roger Federer's forehand drop shot one of the most lethal weapons in tennis history? Up until the final 50 milliseconds before contact, Federer's kinetic chain, his hip rotation, shoulder turn, and racket drop is completely identical to his standard heavy forehand. But right before contact, he utilizes kinetic energy absorption. By suddenly softening his wrist and decelerating the racket head, he deadens the incoming momentum of a 70+ miles per hour ball. In a fraction of a second, he transforms his racket from a trampoline into a shock absorber. As we already mentioned before, standard Federer forehand rips over the net at an average of 2,700 revolutions per minute of topspin. But for the drop shot, he instantly reverses this, slicing underneath the ball's equator to impart aggressive backspin. This triggers what physicists call the Magnus effect. The backspin creates high air pressure under the ball and low pressure on top. This generates temporary aerodynamic lift, allowing the ball to float delicately over the net before the sudden lack of forward velocity causes it to plummet and bite the turf. The true genius of the shot is rooted in its scarcity. Match charting data shows that drop shots account for barely 1% to 2% of Federer's total ground strokes. Because the shot is statistically so rare, the opponent's brain and footwork are firmly anchored to the 98% probability of a deep baseline drive. By the time their central nervous system processes the visual cue of the racket slowing down, it takes roughly 0.2 to 0.3 seconds to change their momentum. By the time they start running forward, the physics have already beaten them, describing the almost immutable formula. A drop shot by Roger Federer is equal to a point won by him. If we break down the biomechanics and the math, his true hidden genius lies in a shot we rarely analyze, his return of serve. When an opponent cranks a 130-mile-per-hour first serve, the ball travels the entire 78-foot length in roughly 0.41 to 0.45 seconds. Basic human visual reaction time eats up about 0.2 seconds of that. You physically cannot wait to see where the ball goes before deciding how to move. So how does Federer do it? The secret is in the precise timing of his split step. Federer initiates a tiny hop into the air about 0.08 to 0.10 seconds before the server makes contact with the ball. He times this so he lands exactly when his brain registers the ball's trajectory. By landing with his knees bent, he loads his legs like springs, creating a kinetic chain that allows his body to explode laterally in a fraction of a second. Mechanically, he ditches the traditional, time-consuming backswing for a compact blocking motion. This allows him to use the server's own kinetic energy against them. He eventually weaponized this physics principle into the saber, the sneak attack by Roger. By stepping well inside the baseline to take the ball on the rise, he radically alters the court geometry, cutting off the serve's angle early and physically robbing the opponent of crucial recovery time. The statistics perfectly back up the science. During his absolute peak in 2007, Federer maintained a staggering return in play percentage of roughly 73% against first serves. He didn't just block big serves, he scientifically neutralized them. So the next time you analyze Federer's game, don't just watch his racket, because the real genius starts with his feet. And that's time. We just broke down the most elegant arsenal in tennis history in about 9 minutes. Federer's game is a masterpiece of biomechanics and pure art that we might never see again. If you enjoyed this rapid-fire breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Drop a comment and let me know, which of Roger's shots do you wish you had in your bag? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.